So we go to globalization. When we talk about globalization, basically we're talking about the free movement of people, the free movement of capital, the free movement of goods and services across the world. That is what globalization is. So we're going to leave the case study and go direct straight into the topic. So the concept of globalization. So here, globalization, this occurs as a result of trends and people behaving as though there is just one market or economy in the whole world. So globalization means that we all are behaving like we have the same market. That means everything around the world are all the same. That means I can have access to what you have access to, you can have access to what I have access to. So that is our perception about the world. That is what globalization is about. I think it's clear. All right, so what are the features of globalization? Yeah, it said goods and services are traded freely across international borders. So it means that with globalization, goods and services are traded freely. That means we are able to sell, we are able to import and export goods and services. That's international trade. With globalization, there's international trade. And what is international trade? The free movement of goods and services across the borders, across international borders. That is clear, right? Two, people are free to live and work in any country they choose. So with globalization, it means I am able to work in this country. I am able to work in Libya as a Nigerian. I am able to work here. It's because I am able to move here to search for a job. Globalization allows that. These are another feature of globalization. The third one, there's high level of interdependence between nations. When we talk about interdependence, it means country A can really depend on country B. Country B can depend on country C, which means we can focus on what we know how to do, and your own country can focus on what it knows how to produce. So whatever we are unable to produce, whatever we can't produce here, we'll be able to get it over there. That's what interdependence is about. So Nigeria cannot produce, Nigeria cannot produce rice, but Libya can produce rice. Just an example. It means because we can produce, maybe we can produce oil. So we continue to produce our oil, and whenever we need rice, we can always reach out to Libya. And whenever Libya needs oil, Libya can always reach out to Nigeria. That is interdependence. So each country will be able to focus on what they know how to produce, what it knows how to produce, and rely on other countries for what they are unable to produce. So, is it clear? Yeah? That's independence. That's independence of between countries, between nations. I think it's clear. The third one, capital can flow freely between countries. So when we talk about capital flow, it means movement of money. We can move money from this country to our country. We can move our investments from Nigeria to Libya. Libyans can also move their investment from Libya to whichever countries they choose to want to establish. Is it clear? That is capital movement. It can be in cash, it can be in property. That is investment. The third one, free exchange of technology. We're talking about technology. Here we're talking about advancement in technology. We're talking about intellectual property. And what is intellectual property? That means, I'm talking, please, focus. So with technology, it means we are free to come up with different ideas, different technology. So whatever technology they come up with in China, we can buy it over here. Whatever ideology, whatever technology they come up with in Turkey, we can use it here. So because there's no problem about intellectual property. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property is about knowledge, people's knowledge that is attached to copyrights. But with globalization, there's nothing like intellectual property. We can have access to new technology. We can have access to new ideas. We can have access to new creations. So do you get the point here? There's no intellectual property when it comes to globalization. And what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is all about people's knowledge, ideas that they have created that is bound with copyright permission. So normally you're not supposed to have access to it because it's someone's idea. But globalization makes it accessible to all. Is it clear? Any question about that? We'll move on. Reasons for globalization. So when we talk about reasons for globalization, what makes globalization to become effective? That is what we're talking about. What really makes globalization to become effective? Number one, development in technology.
The reasons, right?
Yeah, reasons. So we're talking about what makes us to be able to talk about globalization today. You get the point?
Yeah.
So the first one, development in technology. Okay. I have them in the notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Development in technology. So when we talk about development in technology, we're talking about advancements in technology. So with technology, with accessibility to internet, I won't have any problem having my business in Tunisia, having my business in America, having my business in Bosnia. I won't have any problem. So these days, with the advancement in technology, with internet, with computing system, businesses can set up anywhere around the world. So it is easier. So it makes globalization become easier. Do you get the point here? Businesses are able, with technology, with advancement in technology, with the internet, businesses can set up wherever they want around the world, and they will still have access to whatever they need. So there's no fear that, oh, we cannot set up in Bosnia because we don't have access. We might not be able to transfer data from Bosnia to Turkey. We might not be able to transfer data from Nigeria to Libya. It is possible these days. So we can transfer data. Even complex data can be transferred because there's technology to back it up. Two, international transport networks. So when we talk about international transport networks, there's improvement in international transportation. So there's train system, there's air system, there's road system, there's sea system. So all the means of transportation these days becomes better. So it is easier for people to move around the world at a reduced cost. So this makes globalization to occur. Listen, transportation is the movement of people, So transportation would aid the movement of people. But with what is happening around the world these days, with changes these days, transportation cost has reduced because there are different means of transportation. So each individual, each business can go up with a suitable transportation system that suits its own finance or budget. So it becomes easier. That's another reason why we have globalization. So the third one, saturated domestic markets. When we talk about saturated domestic market, we're talking about the domestic market locally, goods and services might not be selling as they used to sell. Like the Libyans, what they produce might not be selling domestically as what they wanted. But with globalization, they can export it. Get the point, please. The third one, saturated domestic markets.
Okay.
So when we're talking about saturated domestic markets, it means that if local businesses might not be selling the way they wanted in the domestic market, but with globalization, they can export, they can sell abroad. Market saturation means that revenue is meant to fall, not to increase anymore. So that means if local sales is reducing. So what can you do as a business? You have to think of extension strategy, like selling abroad. So selling abroad will increase your revenue. So globalization would allow that to happen. So people start thinking about selling their products abroad if they are no more selling locally. Businesses start thinking about selling products abroad, goods abroad, service abroad, if they no longer sell locally. That is what globalization will cause. The next one. Now that's about the last one. Then we go to globalization, government and globalization. Are you there? Government and globalization, page 67. Are you there? Government and globalization. So without government influence and commitment, globalization cannot be achieved. Without government commitment and influence, we cannot achieve globalization. Globalization will not even occur. Why? These are the evidences. Number one, countries cannot trade without government opening international borders. So if international borders are closed, it means that those in that country might not be able to come to this country. Those in this country might not be able to go to that country. So without government opening international borders, there won't be globalization. What we are talking about is that without government commitment, without government influencing it, there won't be globalization. So what are the evidences? Number one, countries cannot trade if governments keep international borders closed. That means Libya will not be able to trade with Turkey. Turkey will not be able to trade with Gabon because the borders are closed. And who closes the border? The government. Is it clear? Two, international trade will be very limited if government puts up trade barriers. What are trade barriers? Restriction of trade. It could be through embargo, it could be through tariffs. So if government continue to increase trade barriers, it means countries will find it difficult. Businesses in different countries will find it difficult to trade with other countries because they have to pay so much. So that will limit international trade. So an increase in trade barriers would limit international trade. And who brings up these trade barriers? Government. So if government reduces trade barriers, there won't be limitation to trading internationally. The third one, people cannot work abroad unless government opens border. If government does not allow people to come into your country, if the government of Libya does not allow me to come into this country, then we won't be able to work here. The schools that we're working will not be able to employ us. Do you get it? So without government allowing migrants, immigrants to come into a country, there's no way there will be globalization. And the last one, firms cannot develop their businesses overseas if planning permission is denied. There are some businesses that are multinational businesses here, yes or no? Like BP, British Petroleum, here. If the government of Libya does not allow British Petroleum to be here, LC Wakili or SC Wakiki, yeah, if those companies are not allowed to be here, if government does not allow them to be here by denying them trade planning permission, then they won't be able to come here. Do you get the point here? So without government permitting businesses to develop their plans here, they cannot. So these are evidences that without government influencing, without government committing to globalization will not occur. Is it clear? So government is important when it comes to globalization. So I wrote government can aid globalization by relaxing laws and regulations, preventing restrictions or complicating. Government can aid globalization by relaxing laws and regulations that prevent, restrict, or complicate trade and businesses. We're talking about deregulation. With deregulation, businesses will be able, countries will be able to trade with one another. I think that is clear. We have another activity, we get it done yourself. So we move on to opportunities of globalization to businesses. So what are the advantages of globalization to businesses? Number one, are you there, please?
Yeah.
Access to larger markets. So this provides good opportunities for businesses as they will have higher sales revenue and increased profits. With globalization, businesses will have access to large numbers of customers. You know, just imagine if you are producing in this country and you can only sell to people in this country. Not to think about selling to people around the world. So selling to a lot of people around the world means you're selling to billions of customers instead of selling to millions of customers. So selling to billions of customers means what? You'll be having high revenue and at the same time, your profit will increase. Do you get the point here? With globalization, businesses have access to larger markets. It means they are able to sell to large numbers of customers, which will in turn increase their profits and revenue. Is it clear? Yeah. Two, lower cost. Because there's globalization, it means businesses can sell on a large scale. They can produce large outputs. And producing larger output means they can exploit economies of scale. Get the point, please? With globalization, it means you as a business, you are able to produce because you can sell to large numbers of customers across the world, globally. So it means if you can sell globally, your output would be what? Would be more. So it means you will be able to produce on a larger scale. Producing on a larger scale will mean that you can exploit economies of scale. And what is economies of scale? An increase of a reduction in your average cost as a result of you expanding your business. So you are able to expand because it's globalization. Is it clear? The third one, access to labor. What is accessibility to labor? We're talking about the workers. So with free movement of labor, businesses will have access to large pool of labor, workers, because there's free movement. People can come in, people can immigrate here because they need a job here. So with movement, with free movement, because we said earlier, I said globalization is the free movement of people, capital, businesses from one country to another, or globally. That's globalization. So with free movement of people, it means people can move to different countries they choose to seek for employment or to search for a job. Do you get it? So that means businesses would have accessibility to large pool of workers, which is an advantage for businesses. Yes or no? Why is it an advantage for businesses when they have accessibility to large pool of workers? Number one, it means those industries that are having shortage of supply of labor will have it reduced. They will be able to have access to large numbers of supply of labor. Two, it might also mean that wage rate will fall because there's large supply, there's increase in supply of labor. But if there's demand for labor, if the demand for labor is increasing as a result of shortage of labor, the wage rate will rise. Businesses costs will increase. But with large numbers of people coming or seeking for employment, the wage rate will fall. Three, it also meant that businesses may be able to employ high-skilled workers because there's increase in supply of labor. You'll be able to choose the best among the rest. Is it clear? That is the advantages of accessibility to labor. Then the third opportunities to businesses is reduced taxation. So what is about reduced taxation? I wrote, businesses can enjoy lower taxes by locating their head office to a country or region with low tax rate. With globalization, your company, your business might think of relocating to a country that has low tax rates. But without globalization, you might not be able to have access to other countries. But globalization makes it easy for you as a business, as a firm, to be able to check, look around, and go to a country that is having a low tax rate. That means you can set your head office in a country that its tax rate is lower, unlike staying in a country that has high tax rates. Is it clear? So what are the threats of globalization to business? What are the problems of globalization to businesses? Number one, we have activity to get it done yourself. So let's go to the problems of globalization. Yeah, problems of globalization to businesses. Number one, competition. So I wrote, businesses will be able to sell their goods and services in different countries, which means the survival of some businesses may be threatened. With globalization, your business, my business, all businesses can set up anywhere across the world, globally. So it means that the survival of some businesses that you are going to set up in their country might become threatened. Do you get the point here? If other companies from different countries can set up in Libya, it might also mean that businesses in Libya might lose their stake, might lose their customers. They are threatened with the presence of multinationals. Do you understand competition here? So globalization will increase competition, which is good for customers, because customers will have more choice to make. But it is not good for businesses because with increasing competition, they have to do with the same customers, and they might not be able to survive it. Businesses that are not so strong will not be able to survive. So, international takeovers. For international takeovers, I wrote, with free movement of capital, it is possible for a business in one country to take over a business from another country. Because with globalization, there's free movement of capital. It means I can bring my cash, my money, from where I am, from Nigeria, to buy a business here. That is what we're talking about. Is it clear? And the third one, which is the last one, increased risk of external shocks. So when we talk about external shocks, we're talking about situations of one economy that would affect our own economy. So here I wrote, increases risk of external shock. The interdependence caused by globalization may pose a threat to businesses as events in one country may affect other countries. With globalization, your country might focus on what it knows how to produce, relying on other countries for what it cannot produce. But when you rely on other countries, any situation, whatever situation that country is, would affect you, because you might not be able to have access to that country. Maybe there's war, and you rely, for example, you rely on Syria for importing oil or gas. But now in Syria, there's war in Syria. It means there will be break. You won't be able to have access. That is what external shock is about. Do you get it? Like the case of Ukraine and Russia. So whichever country, some countries will rely on Ukraine. Some countries will rely getting resources from Ukraine. But right now, because there's war in Ukraine, they won't be able to have access to it. So that's external shock. So events in one country might become a problem to your own country because you depend solely on that country. That is increased risk of external shock. Do you have any questions about that? So go to the example, multiple choice question. Read question 1 for me, please.
What is the reason of increasing globalization? A lower exchange rates, the decreased regulations, the privatization, an increase in environmental legislation, an increase in the world of relations.
So what is the reason why there's increasing globalization? No. B, decreased regulation, because now governments of different countries have reduced trade barriers, they've reduced taxation, they've reduced threats.
Yeah.
They've reduced different laws, regulations that stops globalization. So privatization is taking place, then globalization is taking place. So the answer is B. Question 2. Which of the following is a feature of globalization? Which feature of globalization? The free flow of goods and services across international borders. Question 3. Which of the following is an opportunity for businesses that might result from globalization? Which of the following is an opportunity for businesses that might result from globalization? A, lower cost resulting from economies of scale.
B.
Protection from international takeover, lower level of inflation, and improvements in product quality.
D.
No. They say which of the following is an opportunity?
A.
For A, lower cost resulting from economies of scale. I told you that with globalization, businesses can operate on a larger scale. As a result of that, they can exploit economies of scale. And the last one, which of the following might be a threat to businesses that would result from globalization? Lower interest rate, increased competition, more health and safety. B, that's all about globalization. Do you have any questions about it? Okay.